What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Nose and Dogs podcast. And this is our Sunday night reaction pod to the Saturday night slate. I'm Hunter,
I'm Dylan.
and we are wrapping up. We had just wrapped up week 13, or Rivalry Week, as we like to call it. Can't believe it's already the end of the regular season.
It's been a really good season. I feel like it's not the regular slate of teams here at the end. It feels like I feel like the still kind of wide open here at the end, but we'll move forward.
It's a lot of parity.
Yeah.
You haven't seen this in a long time, and I think it's healthy for the sport, definitely.
hmm
For
I
sure.
agree with you. I absolutely agree with you.
All right. So, without further ado, we'll get into it, but just any opening statements or thoughts from this weekend, like biggest takeaway? Just briefly before we get in.
Yeah, before we get too in depth into it, the only thing I'm really interested in seeing is on Tuesday if the playoff committee look. I want to see where Ohio State and Alabama go. I think that's going to be the biggest question after this weekend is does the committee sit and go Ohio State at 5 or do they put Bama at 5?
I would think they would put the team with the one loss ahead of Bama.
Yeah.
I mean, you can say Bama's lost by a total of 4 points on the final play each possession, but it's hard to justify their one loss is now a 3-loss team, and then the other team is a 2-loss team that lost by 25 as a 22.5 point favorite.
Their best win is 8-4 Ole Miss.
Yeah,
That's their best win on the resume.
or 8-4 Ole Miss or Texas, and that was each came down to the final play of the game. So, I think Ohio State's going to be fine as they're going to be ahead of them. But
I would not be surprised on Tuesday if that Bama bias comes back here at the end.
We'll see. That'll be something we'll talk about later on in our next episode.
Yeah.
I think my biggest takeaway would be underdogs bark on Rivalry Week because favorites were not doing anything for the spreads this week. I'll tell you that. There were a lot of covering by the underdogs, a lot of bigger spreads, you would think. I got burned a couple of times. It was not my finest week, but
Yeah.
we'll say that. And also, every given Saturday, you never know what's going to happen.
This is what makes this sport so great. Weekends like this.
I mean, it started Thursday night with a great game, Friday night with a great slate of games. We'll go through a couple of them, and then go right into Saturday, which was just as good. So, without further ado, you ready to get into this?
Let's get straight into this.
All right. So we'll hop right into this. We'll start, as always, with our games. So we'll start with Georgia. They played Georgia Tech this weekend. It was a 37-14 win for the Dogs. A noon kickoff. It was senior day, and it kills me because every time they do this against an inferior opponent, they sleepwalk their way through the first half. It's gross. It's like, what are we doing out there? I mean, it's down. Georgia Tech gets the ball first, and they march right down the field. It was like a 4th and 9, and they converted a big time, like 35, 40-yard play. It was just gross, and they scored, and I was like, what are we doing, guys? And then we had offense took a little bit to get going. We went into half only up 10-7, just a gross half, and then we finally decided to wake up and be like, hey, let's just end the charade. So I'm glad we ended up winning 37-14. But I don't want to say I'm concerned a little about their the inability to just start games. They're just the focus is never. They're inconsistent with just showing up or deciding to, hey, we're gonna be this team today, or we're gonna start as this team today. Like, I need consistency out of this team because it's 1 week. It could be it's Tennessee. We're coming out with our balls on fire, and we're just coming out guns blazing, like we're gonna hit you right in the mouth, and we're not gonna look back. Or it's gonna be like weeks like, or am I gonna get a week like Georgia Tech or Missouri when, oh shit, we're losing to a shitty team that has no business even being with us right now. Although Missouri is bowl eligible, I mean, it'd be like, it's a slow start. It's like Auburn. We were up like 14-10 at half or something stupid like that against Auburn. Like, it's these slow starts against slow teams, and I think it's that. I think it's, you're dealing with a bunch of 18 to 22-year-old kids. I mean, you can't. I guess it might be hard to get up for a noon kickoff against a 5-6 Georgia Tech team, but
it's senior day though.
It is
like
senior day.
You know, yeah.
And it's just, and it was just, I don't like how we have to just pick and choose when we're doing it. Like, why can't I get the same team that starts, that finishes hell of a great? Why can't I get that team to start? Because I don't need that happening, because God forbid we do this shit in the playoff against USC, most likely, if that.
You're not winning that game. Not to cut you off too much right here, but in a scenario, if Georgia plays specifically a offense like USC in a playoff game and they start out slow, I don't see a way you can recover in that situation because they can score on anybody.
Now, I will say that, yes, we can't be pulling that shit against them. To be fair, we basically kind of pulled that shit the last time we played Lincoln Riley back in 2017 against Oklahoma, where we went, it was halftime, it was 31-17, and we, thank God, because Blankenship hit a 55-yarder in the Rose Bowl, set the record. But it was, if you go back and watch that game, just the first half, it was the same, just getting torched, or just didn't look like we were ready to play. We can't have that in these bigger games, and I think the boys will be ready because now, the real season begins. So, I think postseason ball, I think Kirby's going to get these guys ready. He knows, hey, there's no room for error now. It's survive and advance. So you're not guaranteed another week. I think you have to just go out, prove why you are the best, and I think they will, because obviously competition, it seems like the better competition is, or if they're ranked, they come out and they will be like, hey, we're not messing around today. We're just going to kick your ass.
Yeah.
So I think that'll help. But they're not using the tight ends. Again, we're not using the tight ends enough. Bowers is not doing anything. I can pull the stats right now if you want, or you could pull them up.
I'll pull them up for you.
It's Darnell Washington hasn't done anything, and that's not his fault. They're not getting him. They're not getting anything for him. The referees, though, were not very good. We had 3 touchdowns taken off the board yesterday or Saturday. Yeah, yesterday. And it was come on. Brock Bowers hasn't been really used a whole lot. I liked how we ran the ball we got, and that was also our identity is we need to be balanced. If we start with running the ball, if we could run the ball if just enough effectively, it sets up better for Bennett. And we started off passing the ball a lot, and we weren't doing anything. And then we started running the ball, and we were doing stuff. And then it was oh my God, look what happens. So I think it's just a little bit too inconsistent. The red zone errors are killing me too. I'm very worried about that. If you go back and watch, if you look at the stats, Georgia's 57 of 60 or 60 of 62 or something like that in red zone scoring opportunities. But a lot of those are field goals. We're not converting in the red zone when we need to be, and it's happening every week. Yesterday, we twice inside the 15 we couldn't score, and it was penalties killed us. But you know what? A win's a win. And again, even as bad as we played, we still won by 23. So but it just worries me a little bit. The focus, it's just the focus of just deciding when to be there or when to not be. The sleepwalking is a little worrisome, and just the offensive involvement of getting your best players involved in the game is also a little concerning. But I mean, a win's a win. So I think I'm more just kind of looking toward. I'm trying now to, at this point, you're comparing your team now to the other teams that are are going to be in this contender spot, like who you might be playing. And
Yeah.
I mean, and I believe in my defense as well as anybody. But
Yeah.
what happens if Max Duggan or Caleb Williams decides, hey, I'm going to fucking come ready to play today? Like,
Yeah.
can we show up ready to dominate? And can we match that and go exceed that? I'm just kind of looking at that. Also, I'm a little worried about next week. The only thing I'm worried about next week, and we'll talk about it later, I am a little worried about us against Jaden Daniels, a little bit, just a smidge, with his ability to run the ball, because it happened yesterday against they brought in this 2-quarterback system, and you know it. They had brought in that black guy, or I forget his name. He's like their backup, but he's like the runner. He's the Clemson transfer.
Yeah.
And he came in, and he would just be running the ball. And we couldn't stop him at first. And I'm like, what are we doing, guys? So, but we figured that out. And I say this as bad, like we gave up like 30 points. We only gave up really a cheap touchdown at the end. But, it is what it is. I don't know if you had any thoughts.
They scored double digits.
It was some trick play at the end.
I'm just saying. But, yes, you were right.
By the way, they would have covered, too, if Carson Beck wouldn't have fumbled the ball. They were on the verge of covering that spread.
But, okay, so I just want to back up a couple of things you brought up. So, yeah, Brock Bowers got 5 receptions for 20 yards in this game.
He did have one of the better touchdown catches I've seen. I don't know if you saw it.
I did see it, yeah.
He caught it from like 2 inches off the ground. And
I saw that one.
Caught it. Great catch. But go ahead.
And then Darnell Washington had a single reception for 11 yards. So, yeah, the tight ends in total got 31 yards.
That's your
one
best.
touchdown.
You can't. A defense. No defense has proved they can stop them.
Yeah.
At all. And when I see Darnell Washington in the red zone against getting man-to-man against a 6-foot corner, why am I not seeing a fade route to him every single freaking time?
Yeah.
If if you throw it in the spot, nobody can catch him. He is 6'7", and if he fucking jumps, he might be 6'9". Okay?
Yeah.
So why not give him a fucking shot? You know? And then I don't even think McConkey was very involved. I know he had the decent run, but I don't know. You have the stats pulled up.
No, he wasn't. Yeah, he was not really involved. He had a single a single carry for 14 yards.
Yeah.
He was not involved in the passing game at all.
No, the passing game was a little weird again.
Are they scared with Stetson Bennett under center? That's my only question, because he had 18 attempts for 140 yards, 2 touchdowns. It's not a bad day, but not impressive.
No.
At least to me, it does not scream impressive.
No, I don't think you're scared, because I feel like at this point you know what you have. I mean, his stats don't lie. Like, he's a hell of a player. I think it's more of Kirby and Todd Monken realizing they figure out, and they do such a great job at this too. And it sometimes drives me crazy, because as a fan, I have to just kind of watch it. They just know they know strategically how to put in like terms like a python, just strangle you slowly and painfully to death. And if it's throwing the ball down the field like they did against Mississippi State, because if you watch Stetson Bennett, if they were scared, they wouldn't have beat Mississippi State. You watch it. You look at his numbers against Mississippi State. He had the 1 pick, or he might have had 2 picks. One of them wasn't his fault then, but you wouldn't have. If he needs to make a throw, he'll make a throw.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just a way of recognizing like how the game's going, and that's why like he didn't throw the ball at all against Kentucky. He realized something. I bet Georgia had a shit ton of rushing yards yesterday, though.
They had 264 rushing yards in the game. Yeah.
So you recognize, you recognize how the game's going, and I recognized that we were averaging almost like 8 yards a carry, something stupid like that. So I think they realize they're like, hey, if Tech can't stop us on the run, why even bother? Why even tempt trying to throw the ball? You know? So I think it's more of that. I don't really know. I don't think they don't trust him because he's 26-3 now as a starter, I think, or something. Don't quote me on that. And he's 13-0 as a starter at home. By the way, now Georgia is tied with, I think, is it Alabama for most home wins, consecutive home wins now, because Clemson's streak ended.
Clemson, yeah, and Cincinnati's streak ended.
So that's my answer to you. I think it's more just understanding how the game's going and recognizing, hey, if they're not gonna do anything, we're just gonna run the ball and milk the clock and just slowly but surely run 7 minutes down the field and either kick a field goal or just do whatever with it and give you back the clock with only like 5 minutes to go. So I think that's it.
Yeah. Not too much else to say about this game. Obviously, Georgia was a better team in every aspect. The only thing that really sticks out on the stat sheet is Georgia Tech was able to throw the ball for over 200 yards, which for a Georgia defense that is really good is pretty impressive since Georgia Tech throughout the most of the season has not been able to do anything on offense. So that's my only question for worry, because if they do play a USC squad that will throw the ball 40 times a game, that could be a scary matchup.
I know the number. I don't know what the exact number was, but a lot of it. So like we had a lot of man-to-man going on, and so a lot of it was some nice catches, some solid catches, but they had there was like the one deep shot in the first drive. There was a couple like in-betweeners throughout the game. So like if you think about it though, I mean, Georgia almost plays like we're so dominant though, but we almost play like bend, don't break. Sometimes we're like, we'll let you get your yards if we want, but you're not going to get near the end zone. Like I think Georgia there was a time, I think it was midway through the third or something, where Georgia Tech hadn't crossed over to our like 38-yard line or something since like their first drive.
Yeah.
So, like, you want to take your yards, be my guest over time, but like we're not gonna let you score though. So I think though I do agree because there was like 3 plays where Tech had wide open guys drop balls that hit their hands. There was not a guy near them, and they dropped them in. I know that's not going to happen against some of these better teams. So but again, I think it's more of like an inferior team. What are you going to do? But I think they'll sharpen it up. It will be interesting to see how they respond going into the SEC title game now that LSU now lost. So how are they going to be ready to go, or are we going to think, oh, geez, we got another lackluster again? I don't think that'll happen because they're ranked. So
no, I don't think it will happen, but we'll see. So we'll move on to the Florida State Seminoles, who beat the Florida Gators in Doak Campbell Stadium, 45-38. I think, I think you can attest that was a phenomenal game to watch.
Oh, a great game. By the way, the Friday slate was outstanding.
A lot better than I thought it was going to be when it was first announced. I'll say that.
Outstanding. I mean, the Missouri game, I had Missouri.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
that game was fun.
You knew that was going to happen. And they were fighting for a bowl game. You know that was going to. And then the North Carolina game was awesome. And then what a nightcapper with you guys in Florida. I mean, what an atmosphere. I've never been to Doak. I know you have.
Yeah.
What a atmosphere that was.
So you got to come up to a game at Doak sometime this year or next season.
Well, I know we go up there in 27, so I'll be there for sure for that.
Well, we'll be there for then, but you got to go before then.
Oh yeah, I will. Don't worry.
So we'll get into some of the numbers I want to talk about. So Florida State went in as 10.5-point favorites. Me and you both agreed. We thought the line was a little bit high.
Florida plus 10, hammer.
Yeah. But midway through that third quarter, I don't know about you, but it really did feel like maybe the Vegas guys were right. Because Florida State went up 38-24. I think that was the score.
Yes.
They went up big because something I had addressed in our pregame about it. Not Dan Mullen, sorry, Billy Napier. Sometimes some about Billy. I don't know about you, but I personally feel like he gets into his own head sometimes. Me and you both know Florida State could not stop Florida from running the ball. They were running all over that defense.
And I'll talk about this
we
in a
talked
second.
about it. Mm-hmm. Yep. But like I said would happen, for some reason, he got scared and decided to throw the ball. And me and you both talked about it. Anthony Richardson could not complete he had 12 incompletions in a row in the third quarter. He could not he had 3 straight 3 and outs. They could not move the ball at all.
Yeah.
It was bewildering to watch like on the television. Because the Florida State could not stop the run at all.
No. Are you ready for these stats?
At all.
You ready for this?
Yeah.
You ready for
this? Go for it.
So, Okay. So when we talked about this, we said the keys to the game were if Florida State and later on we didn't know about this, but Florida was out 5 receivers. So
yeah, we were unaware of that.
But so we talked about it as if everybody was healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Florida State, if Florida was going to win or even have a shot in this.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, we talked about the first thing was which team's going to come out firing first. Is it Florida State? Are they going to just come out ready to go, get the crowd going, just stay in? Or is Florida going to come in, quiet it down some, and keep this close and make it a ball game? And we said that the only way Florida can do that, because we know Florida State has a better offense, can Florida run the ball and control the clock and keep Jordan Travis and that offense on the sidelines.
Mm-hmm.
And my God, they did it to a T. And this is without 5 receivers, including their best guy, Justin Shorter, Xavier Henderson. They were pretty much left with Ricky Pearsall.
Yep.
I'm going to go through some stats here real quick.
Yeah, you go for it.
I mean, both teams ran the ball effectively because both teams' defenses couldn't stop one another to save their life. We knew Florida's defense stunk. And I thought Florida State's defense would have a little bit more success. I still thought they were better, but I thought Florida.
The Florida State secondary was definitely better.
Yes,
that's what the front 7 didn't play great though.
Yeah. Now we can go through this. I mean, quarter by quarter because I was watching it with a Florida fan.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, Anthony Richardson came out looking sharp. I'll say that, and you have to say that too. He looked good.
No, he did. That first,
he had the first throw, the big throw to Ricky Pearsall that got it going. I believe who scored first? It was you guys scored first.
So Florida State scored first.
So
actually, it's well, actually no. So Florida State got the ball first because Florida won the toss. Then Pokey Wilson fumbled the ball after a 20-yard reception. Florida got the ball and went for it on 4th down at the 50. Didn't get it, and Florida State scored on the next play. So. Yes. I mean, I don't know how you describe that, but pretty much.
And then Pearsall had the 1 touchdown, and then there was the fumble or interception, the turnover of FSU. Florida got the ball back, and then Florida scored again, and then. But we'll go through some stats here. Florida ran for 262 yards. They averaged almost 6 yards a carry. Florida State ran for 227 yards, almost 5 yards a carry. But the fact that this game was really even close is what baffles me because Anthony Richardson went 9 of 27, 193 yards. He threw for 3 touchdowns. At one point, he was 5 of 7 for 3 tugs and an interception. He only had a QBR of 60. So not ideally a good night. But his touchdowns came on wide open guys because they ran the ball. They ran the ball so well. I mean, Montreal Johnson and Travis Etienne were just running the ball down.
Trevor Etienne.
Sorry about that. Trevor Etienne. They were mostly Johnson, but well, actually, excuse me.
No, it was equal actually. They had the exact same amount of carries.
Yeah. So Etienne, and I should just be looking at the stats. Etienne, 17 carries, 129 yards. Montreal Johnson, 17 carries, 85 yards. Both of them averaged over 5 yards a carry. Anthony Richardson had 10 carries for 41 yards. They ran the ball well. And then all of a sudden, like you just said, I think it was like third quarter, they started throwing the ball. Like Anthony Richardson went like 0 for 9 or 10.
So he went 0 for 12.
Yeah.
He went 0 for 12 to start the half.
What stratosphere, Billy Napier, are you doing? Like, you're running the ball well. You're keeping Jordan Travis, who you guys couldn't touch all night because he was escaping everything and scoring somehow. Actually, he'd be sliding and getting short at the one all night long.
Twice. That was
Twice.
Oh man, that second one was a touchdown. That's all I got to say. The first one, I agree, he was down at the one, but the second one, I think you and me would both agree. I think he was in. I think his feet and the ball were in before he'd given himself up.
I'd have to go back and look at it because I can't really remember it off the top of my head, but I just know twice he got away and he should have scored. He got marked down at the one, but they couldn't stop Florida State. You guys couldn't stop it, but then Florida just decided to go rogue and throw the ball as if like they were down by like 2 scores out of the half.
Yeah.
No, you guys were up, and then you let Florida State go right back down, and then all of a sudden it became a shootout. And you know Florida's not built for that. I mean,
no,
Florida State, 3 touchdowns in the third quarter, and then Florida came back. They had the 1-yard score, and then I think they got a stop. And then
they did.
Then there was the big run by ETN, and then you guys put it on ice with Trey Benson, and then you guys made the stop. But go ahead, I'll let you go.
So, the only other things I have to really say is I think this game once again proved the fact that Jordan Travis is, if he stays at Florida State next year, I think he goes in as at least top 10 Heisman candidate going into next year. I think he will be, just because he's improved so much as a passer in the 2 years being at Florida State and as a runner.
That's what I was gonna say. He really wasn't even like super like needed in the passing game. It was more his legs were the biggest thing.
Yeah. But like that cannon downfield to, I think it was Malik McLean. It was I'm looking at it. It was a 44-yard pass down the field, and then they gave it off to that was the next play was the Houdini where they tried to sack him. He got out.
Oh my god! There was 5 missed tackles on that play.
5 guys. Yeah.
Missed him.
Yeah.
One guy missed him twice. There was he was here, and there was 2 guys, and one of the guys was in front of him, one guy was behind him, and he still got away.
Yep.
And there was, I don't know. Kudos to you. Also, we'll say, I don't know. The officiating on that last drive for Florida.
Bizarre.
Cool. Bizarre, bad, because you had 4th and 18 from the Florida 30. Florida was going backwards, and then you had the really bad PI call.
Yeah, that extended that drive and gave them new life more or less on that drive.
They did.
They were dead to rights.
And, oh my god,
they were dead to rights. They looked lost.
Not a good call at all. It was good coverage, and I had money on Florida, so I'm not like.
Yeah.
I needed Florida to cover. But there was that, and then Florida started moving the ball really down the field, and then they got caught in 4th down. But on your guys' side of the field, I think it was I think they got to about the.
I think it was 26.
Somewhere around there, because they were right on the verge of the
yeah.
It was 46 seconds left or something, and then there was AR. It was a blitz off the edge, and they missed a face mask. And it was kind of a blatant one, too, and I don't know why they didn't call it, because he really pulled it, and they somehow didn't call it at all. And then AR ended up threw it away. But
he threw it out of the end zone.
Yeah, it's the no call right there, and then the egregious PI call. I don't know if that was a forgive me call right there, but or
a makeup call or something.
But I don't know.
And it's
because that
can't explain that one to you.
And I hate Florida as anybody, but you got to make that call. Because you clearly, he pulled the face mask, but they covered, so I don't really give a shit. And Florida lost, so congrats. Have fun at the Liberty Bowl this year.
Yeah.
I don't know.
The strangest thing to me there is the fact that it was SEC refs too. So they had all the reason in the world that also, it would benefit them to call that for Florida.
What do you think of Florida State fans storming the field against 6-6 Florida?
I didn't like it. I'm gonna be sure with you. I didn't like it.
I thought it was a little silly.
I thought it was a little silly too. I don't agree with it. I understand why, but I don't agree with it. Because that is, for the students who are currently attending, that is the first time they had beaten Florida while they've been there. And we have had a bad 4-year stretch. I understand why they did it, but still, I don't agree.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, I guess, yeah, it's, you haven't beaten them in really 4 years because you didn't play the 1 year. But, I mean, I don't know. It's like, if I get it, maybe if it was like a top 15 matchup and both teams came in like 8-3 or like 9-2, but like, what are we doing?
Silly. It was just
silly.
Yeah, no, I agree, but what can you do? It's college kids.
But I will say, credit to FSU. Get to 9-3. You have the shot now of the 10-win season.
Mm-hmm.
Looking to finish strong. I think you'll probably get a Big 12 team or something. I think.
Yeah, I was keep saying Oklahoma State or Texas in the Cheez-It Bowl, so I hope we get cheesy.
You probably won't get Oklahoma State because they just lost to West Virginia, so they'll be 7-5. So you're probably gonna get Kansas. You'll probably get the Big 12 runner-up, possibly. I would say, or like the third team. So still no task. So I think it's gonna be a good step. I think Norvell's got this train rolling. I think it's, and I would not be shocked if they are contending. Well, the ACC. I mean, we could talk about this in like an off-season show, but like,
it feels open right now.
It feels open, but the problem is the divisions are killing the conference because you have FSU, Clemson, Wake Forest, Syracuse, and NC State all in the one division. You're just cannibalizing yourself.
I will tell you, this was the last year for divisions in this conference.
It was? Oh, that's good.
Yeah, because it was a big deal because people were talking about that Pittsburgh versus Miami game was the last ACC Coastal game ever, and it was awful. But it was like a big deal. I don't know if you follow Sicko's committee on Twitter, but they were tweeting about it nonstop for like 10 minutes.
Because, I mean, it's the same thing. I mean, you can say it's the same thing for any division, but like the Big 12, the Big 10 East. I mean, you guys can't. Well, I mean, it's the same thing with the ACC, the Coastal, and the Atlantic.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys cannibalize each other, and then you're left with one team against a shittier team. So, like last ACC game. Well, I mean, last year's ACC title game was like the first time it was like even with like Wake Forest and Pitt. But yeah.
So
we'll move on.
Rest in peace. Last words to say about the ACC divisions going away is a little fun fact for you. The Coastal in the 15 years we had divisions had won the conference twice. So.
Same shit you're gonna find in the Big 10.
Yeah, so we'll move on to the big headliners of the weekend. Right. Number 2 Michigan, or no, I'm sorry, number 3 Michigan beat number 2 Ohio State 45-23 in the big house. I'm sorry, not the big house. They beat them in Ohio.
Oh, in
How
the
about
shoe.
we talk about that?
In the shoe.
They went to Columbus and kicked their butt.
Oh, it wasn't just a kick to the butt. They curb stomped them and left no doubt about it.
Yeah.
45-23, your final. Michigan, who rolled in as a 9.5-point underdog, I think is what the line finished at. Let me see.
As far as I can tell, that's what it was, yeah.
9. It was 9.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll let you start.
So I'll start with saying this. I think it's time we accept the fact that Jim Harbaugh is a better coach than Ryan Day. I want to start there because, I know we've spoken about before the wake up on third base with Ryan Day, right? But the fact that this is the second straight year that not only has Michigan beat Ohio State, but throttled them. More or less made them look like they had no business being in the same building as them.
Emphatic wins. They're not just messing around. And I'm just going to build off what you said there. It's not, and it's one thing to beat your rival on a snowy, like blizzard-esque atmosphere at your own stadium. That's one thing. But to do it on a pretty picture-perfect day, like it was like 55 or 60, sunny, to do it at Ohio State is a totally different thing. And to do it how they did it is really something that needs to be talked about, because I do agree. I think Harbaugh is slowly but surely kind of taking over that top coach in the Big Ten. And what a waste of talent. Ryan Day is the perfect example of wasting talent. I mean, I saw a tweet today about how he has wasted talents of, like, it was like Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, C.J. Stroud, we'll call it now, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Travion Marvin Harrison, I think, who's some other draft picks that they've had.
Let's think about this. They had Chase Young, who was a top 3 pick. He didn't even get to see a title. He didn't even go to the national championship. Justin Fields.
There was
that running back. What's his name?
Plays for the Ravens.
Ravens. I forget his name.
It's hold on.
Jeff Okudah.
One of the Bosas, I believe.
No, he got drafted in minors last year. So,
okay.
Yeah, I will give that. I think the biggest thing to talk about.
It was J.K. Dobbins.
Yeah, J.K. Dobbins. Yep. I was thinking Dobb, but I didn't want to say it because first thing came to mind was Josh Dobbs, and I was like, nope, that's a Tennessee quarterback. Yeah. But I think it's interesting to watch because in this game, they more or less completed the game plan they would have to win this game. Ohio State. They threw the ball for almost 400 yards. That was the key to the game plan. Is if we knew it was going to be a nice sunny day, Michigan would not have the advantage in the fact that they could run the ball on them and that it was cold. You know what I mean? It was like what is it, 50 degrees outside?
Something like that.
Yeah, and they not only that, but for the most part, J.J. McCarthy played fantastic. This is the first time. This is the first time I've ever watched him play great.
And I'll be the first one to say it. I was wrong about that. I thought he was, and we said this both. I think we both agreed.
Yeah.
If we were going to choose one, we were going to go with C.J. Stroud. And for the most part, first half, Stroud was playing well.
Yeah, Stroud was playing really good.
McCarthy was just matching that. And to be fair, he had the couple deep shots, but they were wide open. And I don't know what happened, because we talked about how Ohio State's defense was improved, but
they looked worse this year. They looked in this game right now. They looked worse. At least when it came to the secondary.
And I was watching a podcast or listening to a podcast earlier today, and they were talking about how was the Ohio State defense improved, or were they being covered up by playing bad teams?
Because I was talking about this last one too, because on the last show we talked about that Ohio State's defense, while improved, when they play good teams, they don't look great. Like at least good offenses. Like when they played Maryland, they did not look good. They gave up 30 to his little brother.
They gave up 30 plus 31 or 30 or 31 to Penn State.
Yep. And those were the best two offenses they played at that point, because they played, no offense to them, a terrible schedule. The Big Ten was not good this year, and it propped up Ohio State as to being something they were not. They were not an elite defense. They were a good offense with a pretty mediocre defense. If you look at the stats right here, Michigan did not have Blake Corum for this game. He had 2 carries for 6 yards. He did not. Yeah. If you want to, he played. Yeah, he had
Donovan
3.
Edwards.
Donovan Edwards had 22 carries for 216 yards. Averaged almost 10 yards a carry with 2 touchdowns.
And
they could not stop him.
It was all in the second half, too.
Mm-hmm.
I saw I saw something where in the first quarter or something, they had 0.1 or 1 yard or something stupid. They were holding them, but for some reason they couldn't stop them through the air. What the hell happened? And then all of a sudden, I don't know what happened in the locker room, but Michigan came out just guns blazing. They ran the ball, 252 yards. They ran it 35 times. They averaged 7 yards a carry.
Yep.
Penalties were also a big play. 5 for 30 for Michigan, 9 for 91. There was the dumb penalty by the one player in the sidelines. Like, what the hell is he doing?
So that's what I think. This also a little bit to talk about with the Ryan Day thing is that this team looked really undisciplined.
Also,
like really undisciplined.
Oh yeah, and I will say this too. And we were bragging about J.J. McCarthy. He only went 13 to 25 for 278 yards, but he made the throws that he needed to make. I mean, because he did most of that damage in the first half, and then if you think about it, in the second half, they did what they played Michigan style ball, where they were just going to line up and just run it down your throat.
Yep.
And we were going to see if you could stop them.
And they could not stop them.
And he said that in this post game on the field when he was getting interviewed. They were like, they wanted to stop our main course of action, so we just chose another route to beat them. I mean, Stroud went 31 of 48, 349, but he had 2 picks.
And those weren't just like lightly picks either. Those did so this is the easiest way to explain how this game went down. This is a tale of two halves, but primarily a tale of the third quarter to the fourth quarter, because in the third quarter, Michigan scored 7. Ohio State scored nothing, right? It was a close game until the fourth quarter started. Michigan went up 21 they scored 21 points. Ohio State scored 3 points. And whenever they tried to get something going, C.J. Stroud could not get it going. He threw 2 picks on 2 drives where they were starting to move the ball, and then Michigan immediately scored on those drives.
It was really 1 pick. The other one was at the end of the game when it was but the big thing was, it's kind of like adding on what you said, the tail of the 2 quarters in the second half. Twice Ohio State had the ball. It was like 4th down though. In Michigan territory, and Ryan Day chose to punt and not go for it. One of them they were like 4th and manageables too, and he chose to punt, not either try a field goal or go for it. And then he was trying to play the pussy game, and excuse me if I offend anybody for saying that, but he was playing that. He was playing the scared game where, we're just going to punt it, and we're going to play defense and hope to get it back. And that's not going to work. And again, it didn't work last year, and it didn't work again this year. So, I mean, I just don't know what happened both halves, because it just baffles me how well Michigan just stood up and stopped Ohio State from doing virtually anything. I mean, anything. I mean, I'm looking at team stats now.
The easiest way to look at this is, Michigan was 7 for 16 on third downs. Ohio State was 5 for 16. They both punted the ball 5 times, and actually, Ohio State had more plays. They had the ball they had the time of possession. They had the ball for a longer amount of time. They just could not score the ball. They could not get to the end zone in the third quarter, in the fourth quarter. It was just, it's hard to explain it.
Third quarter, it's 24-20. Michigan had just scored, and Ohio State has the ball back. It's 4th and 3 from the Ohio State 49. 4th and 3, and they decided to punt.
Yep.
Luckily, Michigan had a punt again. Ensuing drive. It's 3 plays, no yards, 24-20 still, but you're at the Michigan 48. Punt. It was 4th and 10. Why not? I mean, unless you know your kicker doesn't have a range, why not test it? Or go for it. Fuck it, just go for it. Your offense is one of the best in the country. And then they play the scary game where they just punt it away. Ensuing drive, Michigan scores. Next drive for Ohio State, 3 plays, 7 yards. Punt. Michigan gets the ball back, missed field goal. Ohio State field goal. Michigan touchdown. Ohio State interception. Michigan touchdown. Ohio State interception. End game. Those 2 drives, killers. But as I always say, if you're a favorite and you might, if you're not going to cover, lose the game outright. And Ohio State did that to the team. I mean, just And what do you think? And we'll talk about this Tuesday, but we kind of brought it up a little bit in the opening statement. But Ohio State, where did they go from here now?
So I don't think the playoff is closed to them yet.
I don't think either.
I think if you're them, you're praying that USC or TCU loses. Like that's your only hope. That is it. You are praying that one of those two.
Is TCU a lock though? Because they're undefeated.
I don't think TCU is. I don't think. I mean, I would think so if Ohio State wasn't at 5. If Ohio State's at 6, I think they're a lock, win or lose. But I think I don't know. You know what I mean? I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, well,
you think
if Ohio State's at 5 and USC loses, bam.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see. I think TCU has a little more wiggle room than people think, but we'll see how the playoff.
I think because I think it depends how the playoff
TCU.
Committee does it.
They keep finding ways to try to not downplay TCU, so we'll see. But do we have anything final thoughts about this game?
The only final thoughts I have is this the beginning of the end of the Ryan Day time in Columbus? Because for everything Ohio State is, it's also, I don't know what you would consider. I would consider the single most high-pressure job in the country. Because they have 3 goals there. Is beat Michigan, win the Big Ten, win a national championship. I think they're pretty lenient on the national championship stuff because everybody knows you can't win that forever. But if you go 2 straight years losing to Michigan, 2 straight years missing a chance at a Big Ten title, I think at least at that place with those boosters who are crazy about winning, you can get yourself fired going 11-1 4 straight years if you lose to Michigan all 4 years.
I would
you go. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna. No, you're all good. I was just gonna say I think it's more. Forget Big Ten. I think your job is to beat Michigan and at least compete for national titles. And I'm not saying you don't have to be there every year, but you need to be in the playoff more often than not. You need to be competing for national titles. And right now, he's not doing that. I'm not thinking. I mean, maybe he's not in the hot seat yet.
No, he's not. Not at all.
I don't think he's near it. I think, if anything, there might be. We're trying to get the lighter started.
Yeah.
I think that, but
I think
I don't know what it is, but right now I think Michigan has turned the tables on the rivalry. I think they have now kind of asserted themselves as the top team in the Big Ten going forward.
Yeah. I mean, it's one thing if they had won 1 year, you could argue it's a fluke, but to do it 2 years in a row and to blow them out both times too, more or less physically dominate them, it more or less just, at least to me, states they're a better team and they deserve our respect. So I'm respecting the Michigan Wolverines going forward.
I just don't know how, and these are my final 2 thoughts, and we'll move on because I know we need to.
Yeah.
Well, first thing, I just don't know how Ohio State, and this is back to the grind day in them, how can you not look back at last year's performance and say, okay, what did we do wrong there, and translate to this game? And if you just watch the game, Michigan did the same shit they did last year on them. It's the same stuff. And Ohio State couldn't stop them. So we're going to see next year if they can do it. And my final thing is C.J. Stroud completely just choked away the Heisman.
Yeah.
He had every shot to just take it and run with it after if he just played good enough and won. And he didn't do either. So we're going to move on because we got to because we spent a little too much time on this game. But we'll just kind of maybe briefly talk about some of the others, but because that was the biggest game going in.
That was the biggest game going in. I think that was the headline for the afternoon, even with the other big games after.
Yes. So we'll move on here to USC Notre Dame. USC winning in LA on Saturday night. Final was 38-27 because the fuckers messed around the overhit, and I had the under at 64.5, 65. was the total. So that hurt.
Yeah.
Because Notre Dame decided to score a touchdown lead at the game. Honestly, biggest takeaways, Caleb Williams is really good. He's just locked up the Heisman. I think there's not really anybody else because Drake May lost. That Georgia Tech game really killed him. Drake May losing. C.J. Stroud not playing well. Blake Corum being injured. Trying to think. I mean, maybe Max Duggan because he had a really good game yesterday.
But Caleb Williams beat Notre Dame.
Yes.
And not only beat them, but he put USC on his back in that game. You know what I mean? He is the reason they won that game.
And that does worry me a bit too about USC. And we're gonna find out real quick what's gonna happen because they got Utah again and this Saturday, and we'll talk about it in our preview show later this week. But they got Utah again, and Utah was able to limit him. And I know it was a close game, and they had their fair share of points. Yeah. But Utah found a way to limit him, and this time around they don't have Travis Dye. So is that how big of an impact is that going to be? But as far as this game goes, Notre Dame they just didn't have the firepower. They just didn't. I mean, Drew Pine did all he could, but you're going up. You can't bring a knife to a gunfight, and that's kind of what happened there. It's been the story all year for Notre Dame. They can't if their defense isn't really keeping them in the game. They're kind of screwed. USC played their style of ball and just kind of dominated. And sure as hell, their defense does what they always do. They'll give you your points, they'll give you their yards, and they'll get a late turnover when they need to.
Yep.
So that's all I really got from the game. USC controls their own destiny. Williams has if he goes out and handles Utah. And just wins the Pac-12, he'll sure as hell lock up the Heisman then. But USC controls their own destiny to the playoff. And that was it. That's all I had. I don't know if you want to finish up.
Only really things I have to add is, yes, I think even if he doesn't play Superman ball on Saturday against Utah, I still think he's secured the Heisman just because his competitors all more or less laid goose eggs in the last minute. You know what I mean? Hendon Hooker went down with his ACL tear. Blake Corum got hurt. C.J. Stroud has played terrible the last 3 weeks and almost costed his team against Maryland. And this week he didn't play good against Michigan. And Caleb Williams not only has been a great passer, but he's also been he's consistently good, and he can score with his legs, which has helped him to. So I don't know if you saw, but he set the single program record for touchdowns by a single player at 44 with his 30 touchdowns and then his rushing touchdowns too. So with him, I'm in awe every time I watch him. I don't know about you, but that guy is fun to watch. That guy he's electric. He's consistently good. He throws a ball that it almost I don't know how to describe it, because when people watch, for instance, Anthony Richardson, who's also a highly regarded prospect for some reason, you can see that he throws the ball good, right? You know what I mean? We can agree he does have a good arm.
Richardson's problem is that his accuracy is not good at all.
His accuracy is not there, and sometimes
but it's just.
But Caleb Williams throws a perfect ball, a perfect spiral. He hits his targets in stride. Man, and this team is one of those teams where I think they're a sleeper going into the playoffs. I know they're being talked about a lot because it's USC, it's Lincoln Riley's first year, and they're looking at possibly a chance at a national championship, right? That's an amazing turnaround, and really shows you what the transfer portal can do, and that the idea of recruiting a team and letting them build up is slowly becoming obsolete in college football. Because if you can go into the transfer portal and just not sign, but more or less sign an NFL team every offseason, I mean, that's incredible. To me, that's incredible. You could do that. But I know you have something to say, so.
Well, just two things. I just want to say about that point. As far as the transfer portal goes, though, I do agree with how like it's a weapon now.
Yeah.
If you're effectively able to use the transfer portal to a strength, it's very very good. Now Georgia, and I just say they were I believe if I know this right, they didn't take a single player out of the transfer portal this year.
Yeah.
And if they did, it was one person, and I don't think they did. I think they were one of like 3 or 4 teams that didn't take anybody out. So that I will say it's still a thing because like even Clemson didn't do it, and they're still around. But I mean, I think if you're effectively able to develop and get your kids to understand the goal, that hey, your time might not be now, but if you stick around, stick the process, you will succeed. But
Yeah.
I do agree to an extent with USC and Lincoln Riley. But the biggest thing, though, even with the transfers, he was able to get Caleb Williams to come because this is the second year under Lincoln Riley. Because it's one thing to just leave and have a new quarterback, learn a brand new system, and try to, it's another thing to get Caleb Williams, who was with you last year, bring him over. That way you at least have some sort of stability at the biggest, most important position on the field. You know what I mean? It's one thing to bring in a bunch of recruits or transfer portal guys like Travis Dye or Jordan Addison. It's another thing to bring in a guy that's been there already, knows the system back of his head, and it's the second year doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know if you have anything else to say.
Nothing else. I don't want to spend too much time on it. We'll talk about them more when it comes to the rankings because I do think they're a pretty big component to all that. But that's it. I'm just impressed with them. That's it.
They keep rolling.
Yep. And let's move on to a rivalry game. LSU versus Texas A&M. Not a real rivalry. Let's just state that.
But I mean, who's
LSU just watched
rival?
Arkansas.
I mean, it's just Arkansas?
Well, it's battle for the boot. That's what it used to be. Because
Why
they
don't
used to
just
play
do
them
that?
on. Because Texas A&M wouldn't play Texas. I don't want to go too much into it because they'll end up fixing it later. But Texas A&M refused to play Texas.
Oh, yeah, because they're a bunch of babies. It's the same thing now with Oklahoma and Oklahoma State.
Yep.
This
I don't
game,
know. I understand. But we'll move on, yeah.
and we talked about this game as, I don't know if it was like an important game or a sleeper game, but we thought going in, LSU was like a 10-point favorite. Going up against a A&M team that just deader than doornail, just dead. And we thought LSU was not going to have one of those just sleepy letdown spots because going in with 2 losses, you knew they had no room for error, even with going to the SEC title game. And what the fuck do? They go in and they lay a big old goose egg in College Station.
Yep.
And I don't even know. I gotta look at the stats. You want to talk about this?
I got the stats up right now. So the biggest thing to talk about is A&M's rushing attack. They ran for 274 yards on LSU. LSU could not stop A&M from running the ball. Texas A&M quarterbacks Connor Wegman played good, not great. He threw for about 150 yards. Nothing special, but he kept them, in the game. But their rushing attack, they could not stop them all game. They ran all over them.
I was flipping back and forth. Harold Perkins and Ojolari weren't a non-factor.
Nope.
They didn't do anything. And A-Chain and then who's the receiver? Devon A-Chain was
Stewart.
playing. Not Stewart.
So A-Chain's their running back. He ran for 215, but
No, I'm thinking of Muhammad.
Muhammad was good.
He had a big game, 5 receptions for 94, including a touchdown. That was that nice touchdown in the corner. I mean, I don't know. Like, Daniels, 21 to 35, only $184, no touchdowns. A&M had a perfect game plan defensively. Their defense has been solid for the most part all year. Aside from a couple lackluster performances, but like they held this LSU team that had been rolling just in check. I mean, Keishawn Butte, 4 receptions, 43 yards, nothing. Neighbors had 7 receptions for only 69 yards. That was their high. That was their leading receiver.
Yep.
I mean, they couldn't get the running game going. I mean, their quarterback, Jaden Daniels, this is the other thing that also worries me is he did have 12 carries for 84 yards, but, like, I mean, John Emery only had 9 carries for 55, so, like, they couldn't get anything going all night. And then they were playing, I mean, at one point, I think it was, I want to say it was like 38-21 or something like that. It was 38-17 at one point.
Yes, it was.
So, I don't know. I mean, we thought going in LSU was not going to do this, and they lay an egg.
They let us down, personally.
They let us down.
That's
and
all I
got
got
to
to say.
Down as a resume builder. Also, now, actually, on the positive side, if anybody wants SEC title game tickets, now have dropped to like almost under $200 thanks to their loss. They went from like $400 a pop to down to the 200s. Low,
you're gonna make a trip up?
Maybe. No,
Not out of the question anymore.
Probably not, but maybe. No, I'm just kidding. Probably not. But
yeah,
it definitely does. And it definitely does seem now, does LSU now even care? I mean, how does Brian Kelly get these guys now focused? You're going up now against really your biggest test all year. SEC title game. But now you're 9-3, and you're really the second best record now in your division, even though you won the division. Like, how do you go off from winning, 9-2, chance to be at 10-2 going into the SEC title game with a playoff spot on the line? How do you respond after just laying an egg like that? How do you think?
So, I really don't know what Brian Kelly's going to do about this. I would like to believe that the team is still wanting to win. Like, the SEC championship is good enough for them, right? That's a good enough goal in a coach's first season that the players can rally around that to fight, at least for this game. But I don't know for sure. I really don't know for sure because I think you can assess. Part of their soul had to be ripped out losing to Texas A&M like that.
I think also the way that they lost, like they got just outplayed. And it may be one of those nights, and they may come ready to go Saturday. But I don't know. Like, how do you respond? You can't lose the way you did, and then expect to just all of a sudden turn things around against the best team in the country.
Yeah.
I don't know. But the line, I'll tell you what, Vegas, shooting that spread out. It was 15 going into Saturday. I believe it's at 17 right now as of shooting this. It's Monday morning at 12:05 a.m.
Yep.
Yeah. So we'll move on because we need to. We're going to head to the rapid fire part of the segment or the show.
The show.
No,
I don't have anything to add at all, to be honest.
Perfect. Okay, so we'll move to the winners and losers segment of the show. We'll just name off 3 winners of the week, who won the week, and 3 teams or whatever that lost the week. So we'll do our winners first. I'll start. My winners of the week are Tulane, responding, beating Cincinnati, and kicking, let's be honest, kicking Luke Fickle out of Cincinnati because he's going to Wisconsin now. And then, they will now be hosting for the first time. They'll be first time playing in an AAC title game and hosting it, and they get a rematch with UCF. And by the way, I think they will win that.
I think it depends on what happens this week with the topic we'll talk about at the very end. But yeah, I do think they will if he's still there. Yeah, I think they will win.
Yeah. So there was them. My second winners of the week, and actually, you know what? I'll save it for my third winner. Second winner will be Michigan. What they did this weekend was something I didn't expect, who had Ohio State winning this game handsomely. I thought they were going to just get outclassed. But they went in with a I don't even know, just a fire in their belly, just wanting to just let it all out. And they did that to a T. They curb stomped Ohio State at the end. Columbus, and left no doubt why they are the best team in the Big Ten. And I think they're going to roll Purdue and just on the road to the playoff. That's my winner.
Yeah.
And then my third winner is a team who Georgia beat by 41 at South Carolina. And it's the South Carolina Gamecocks, and I just kind of spoiled it. South Carolina, and more specifically Spencer Rattler, who made a couple of boneheaded decisions in this game. This was a noon kickoff. Went into Death Valley in Clemson, the fake Death Valley. And after coming off one of the biggest wins in program history against Tennessee the week before, they go into South Carolina, or into Clemson, noon kickoff, and they beat the Clemson Tigers. They knocking out their second straight team from any sort of college football playoff consideration.
Yep.
Beat them 31-30, and Beamer Ball, who is special teams, they had 2 fumble recoveries, including the game-winning recovery on a muffed punt. Credit to South Carolina. I mean, as bad as not even bad. Spencer Rattler has been, let's be honest, not very good all year. But something I don't know what it was after the Florida game that just sparked this team and him, because he played really well yesterday, aside from the really bad interception he threw at the end of the half because they were at the goal line and threw a pick. Aside from that, like, a really good game. And I don't know what went on after that Florida loss, but they have a shot.
They flipped a switch.
They flipped a switch and are just. They were honestly the better team yesterday, and it showed yesterday. And they go in, they beat South Carolina, or they beat Clemson, first time since 2013. The South Carolina fans stormed the field, made it even better, while the Clemson fans were doing their fight song or whatever. They were
embarrassing,
just field.
Embarrassing.
Awesome. And they had the flag out and everything. Oh, it was amazing. But kudos to South Carolina, and DJ Uiagalelei is trash, like we've said before. Trash. So those are my winners of the week. If you have anything to say about them, or we can move on to yours.
Only thing I would have to really add is I'm actually going to be embarrassing myself up next year when I go up to a Clemson game. So I hope that you make fun of me after I end up storming the field and doing that dumb fight song thing. So that's all I have to say.
Well,
so we'll move on to your losers. Yeah.
By the way, snapping Clemson's would have been 40th home winning, or 40-game home winning streak would have been snapped at 39. First loss since 2016. All right, move on. Go to your winners of the week.
My winners of the week. So I'm going to start off with the Pac-12. The Pac-12 is here. The Pac-12 finally has their team that can make it back to the college football playoff. The first Pac-12 team since, I believe, Washington in 2016.
And they got,
if I'm correct,
annihilated.
Or 2017, one of those two. They got killed by Alabama.
Yeah, that was the year Washington got in, and Penn State was the ones that thought they should have.
Yeah.
Continue.
But anyways, that would be if USC wins on Saturday, this will be the Pac-12's first time back in the big game. If you're a Pac-12 fan, you have to be excited about at least next year, because I understand that USC is probably leaving for the Big Ten, UCLA too, but at this very moment you have top 25 team in USC, UCLA, Oregon, Oregon State, Utah, Washington. That's a lot of Pac-12 teams that are not just good, but debatably great teams. This is these next 2 years could be considered almost like the golden years of the end of the conference, right? Because I don't think the conference lasts much longer if Oregon or Washington end up leaving. But with this many good teams in the conference at once, you just have to be excited for the chance that next year you could have UCLA, USC, Oregon, and Utah all fighting for a playoff spot near the end of the season.
Well, I thought, isn't USC and UCLA leaving next year?
The year after, 2024.
Okay.
So same thing with like Texas, and Oklahoma. So I actually think the USC UCLA one is more complicated right now because UCLA hasn't gotten permission from the state of California to join the Big Ten, but I don't think it will end up mattering at the end.
Mm-hmm. I do agree. You could also throw in Washington State, who was they're 7-5. Arizona played really competitively through all year long. They beat UCLA. They finished the year strong. I know they're not going to be going to a bowl game, but a lot of looked forward to.
Arizona State just hired.
They just hired Kenny Dillingham from Oregon.
Former terrible offensive coordinator at Florida State, by the way.
But offensive coordinator at Oregon just went to Arizona State. Deion Sanders might be going to Colorado. There's plenty to look forward to in the Pac-12.
Yes, there is.
Now, my concern is, and it does this every year, and we just said that Pac-12 has a playoff contender. The cannibalistic, this conference should be called the Cannibalist Conference because they just eat each other alive. And will it happen again Friday night? Excuse me. Will Utah spoil it for the conference, or will they just? No, Utah. And we keep hiding Utah. Utah's defending Pac-12 champs. They're going for back-to-back. Rose Bowl. They got to revenge a Rose Bowl loss. Yeah. All right.
We'll get more into it later, but yeah. So I'll move on to my next winner is Kansas State Wildcats.
Kansas State.
Yep. Hats off to Kansas State. They're going back. They're going to the Big 12 championship with a chance at a New Year's Six bowl. If you're a Kansas State fan, you just have to be happy with what's going on with the program right now. I mean, they're competitive. They're good. They're ranked in the top 15. I think they could end up being number 11 or 12 on the college football playoff when it comes out next. But
I will not only play in a Big 12 title game, they have a chance to avenge a loss they had earlier this year where they were up by 18 in the second half. I watched that game, they outplayed TCU, and then Will Howard got hurt, and then TCU started just doing what TCU does and hypnofrogged it. But Kansas State, kudos to you. I think they might crack the top 10 this week, or at least be 11.
It's entirely possible.
I think they have a shot. Definitely go to a New Year's Six game if they can pull off or play close. Although that would be their third loss, they may not. But I think if they win, they will definitely for sure go.
If they win, they will be. But yeah,
they'll go to the Cotton Bowl, I think, right?
Yeah, that's the Big 12 tie-in, I think.
Okay.
And it's like that's a tie-in if there's like
the Fiesta Bowl. I think it's the Fiesta Bowl, one of the two.
One of those two. I don't remember.
That's the playoff game. Excuse me.
Yep. So it's the Cotton Bowl then. But yeah. So then I'll move up to my last one is Washington, who in the first year head coach there is ranked 9th in the country. They just beat Washington State. They beat Oregon this year. Their one loss is to a ranked UCLA squad, and man. You got to be happy with this program right now. I mean,
2 losses.
Who else they lose to?
Give me 1 second. I'm looking it up now. They lost to
Arizona State. They lost to Arizona State.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, they lost to UCLA and Arizona State back to back. But I mean, still.
But Michael Penix.
You got to be happy with this program.
What a year.
Michael.
If he didn't play in Washington where nobody watched him because they're playing at 2 a.m. every week, I mean, his numbers this year are insane. I mean, this from just the Apple Cup alone Saturday, 25 and 43.
He kind of like
25
400 yards, right?
485 yards, 3 touchdowns. He had 1 bad pick. I remember watching it. His QBR was 96. He averaged 11 yards a pass. I'm gonna look at his. I just want to see his overall stats.
Yeah, I'm looking at them right now. They're impressive. I'm gonna tell you right now.
330 completions to 500 attempts. He has 4,354 yards. He has 29 touchdowns. It's just 7 picks. I mean, if he didn't play in Washington and played for some bigger school, I mean, he'd easily be in New York. He quite frankly should be. He'll finish the top 10 in Heisman voting, but he's not going to go to New York because I think of who he plays for, and that's kind of sad because it kind of sucks because it shouldn't be subjective like that, but it is.
Mm-hmm.
But what a year from a decent quarterback at Indiana to hurting. He got injured, goes to Washington, and just completely flips the script. I mean, the game he had against Oregon, insane.
Mm-hmm.
But, all right, continue.
And that rounds out my winners. Do you want to move on to your losers?
Yes, I'll win one of the losers. All right, losers of the week as we wrap things up here. My losers of the week are Ohio State had a shot, to seize control of the Big Ten East, get to the Big Ten title game where they would have won it, and you would think they're going to win it. Had a easy playoff lock on the line, Heisman possibly, trophy on the line, and they squashed it all away like you're squishing a bug. They completely blew it all away, and now they are just praying. Now they have to leave it into the hands of other teams to try to get them back to where they want to be. It's not where you want to be, and they had every opportunity to not put themselves in the spot, and they didn't capitalize. So, Ohio State, big loser this week.
Yeah, they are.
My second loser of the week, the ACC. Both of your title teams are lost, and really got outplayed as close as the games were. They really were outplayed, both the teams.
Yeah.
South Carolina beat Clemson by 1. I mean, it really wasn't that close. It didn't feel that close. It felt like South Carolina, once they got the lead, it wasn't. It really felt like they weren't going to give it back. And so, and unfortunately, I mean, it took a fumble late for that to be true. And then UNC, you can't lose to NC State at home. You can't. Credit to Drake May, he played pretty well, but I watched most of that game. He is slow start. They can't have the slow start against NC State, especially at home. You just can't. So I mean, now that title game is pretty much irrelevant. I mean, playing for the Orange Bowl. So congrats. I mean, I think the line right now, it opened up at, I think Clemson's an 8-point favorite, so we'll see. I'm going to see if that line moves up or not, because I would consider taking North Carolina, being in Charlotte. It might have a little home field, but we'll see. That's my big losers of the week, the ACC, especially when you have Florida State, who right now I think is the best team in the conference at the moment. And that's not being biased.
I agree with you.
That's just watching the game.
No, I don't think I'm being biased when I say that.
You could ask anybody that follows college football, and I'll let you finish. You ask anybody that watches college football, they'll tell you the same thing. As of right now, not 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago, it's as of right now. I think Florida State is clearly the best team, most balanced and most obviously the best team. I don't know if you have anything to add.
I think they're just playing their best ball right now.
Yeah.
And a lot of the rest of the ACC is playing their worst right now. Mm-hmm. So I'm not trying to be really biased because obviously Florida State, but I think Florida State right now, if they rematched against Clemson or NC State or Wake, I think they beat them by 2 touchdowns. Clemson's offense is terrible.
That's just
terrible.
You have to be a little frustrated as a Noel fan, just in general, anybody that's a Florida State fan, that you really shouldn't have. You should have beat NC State if your coach, if Norvell had a brain cell in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
You really let the Clemson game slip away, because it was really like 5 minutes of that game that really cost you. 5 to 10 minutes of that game, really one quarter, kind of killed you, and then the Wake game. I don't know. You guys just got outplayed in that game. I mean,
we just got beat that game.
Hartman, that was when Wake Forest was kind of rolling, but you have to kind of look back and be like, after the season, were you probably going to go 10 wins? Like, man, what really could have been?
But this really could have been a special year.
But it also does have to make you be a little encouraged and happy for what's going to happen next year, because he has this train rolling. So, but we'll move on to the final loser of the week on my end, and that was the Oregon Ducks. A shot all they had to do to make it to the Pac-12 title game was win. They didn't have to do anything else, just win.
Yep.
And they were going up to play Oregon State, the Civil War, which, by the way, is always a good game. Even as bad as Oregon State has been over the last couple of years, always an entertaining game. It's really part of the game. Oregon was up 31-10 with 5 minutes to go in the third quarter, and they blew it.
Yep.
Some crappy play calling by Dan Lanning, going forward again on your own side of the field, and then some turnovers. I saw a stat, Oregon State on their final, I think, 8 drives or something stupid like that, didn't throw the ball. They ran the ball like 20 times in a row. You can't let that happen. And it also helps, though, because Oregon State kept getting the ball on Oregon's side of the field. And then Oregon couldn't do anything after. And they blew it. And then they needed Washington State to win last night, and they couldn't. So they will have a nice Holiday Bowl game. They had a shot in the Pac-12 title game, possibly a Rose Bowl appearance, and all they had to do was not blow a 21-point lead with just about 5 minutes to go in the third, and they did that.
Yeah, they had 60 yards passing, Oregon State. So, I mean, if you lose to a team that threw the ball for 60 yards, I don't know what to say to you. I don't have anything else to add. That's just embarrassing.
Yeah, that's all I got on the losers this week. We'll head to yours.
So we'll move on to mine, and I'm going to start with the losers of the War on I-4, South Florida. Now, the main reason I want to put them on the biggest losers of the week is not because of the game itself, because, quite frankly, they didn't deserve to be in that game at all. They were nowhere near close in terms of actual team, like how the teams are. They not only did they come back out of nowhere, but they blew it on a play that was not a touchdown. I was so shocked when I saw that, but they got robbed there. That was not a touchdown.
The go-ahead touchdown?
Yes, to win the game with like
it looked like
10 seconds.
Because I didn't watch the game.
I was watching. I was watching the game
of the final play when he scored. It looked like his ball. He caught the ball and he landed out of bounds.
Yeah, he did.
And they ruled it.
We all saw it. They called. So the reason they ruled it a touchdown was because they originally called it a touchdown, so they didn't want to overturn the original calling on the field. But you got to feel bad for South Florida.
And they went to review about it.
Yep. They didn't explain really why either. They said he got his body in bounds with possession, but if you watch the review, it's very clear that his leg
landed out of bounds.
It's out of bounds first. Yeah. It was just shocking to watch.
Yeah. Well, kudos to USF being one of 2 teams to win their first game. There might be more, but the only 2 I know that won their first game, and then follow that up by losing their next 11 games. So congrats to Northwestern and USF.
Special company.
Right.
So then I'm going to move to the next man, Lane Kiffin. Now, Mr. Lane has had a media circus around him this past month with the Auburn stuff, the trolling on Twitter, the losing 3 out of the next 4 games on his schedule. It's been a rough November for Lane Kiffin, and losing the Egg Bowl for the first time as head coach at Ole Miss is probably not the way you want to spend your Thanksgiving night. So I put him on biggest losers of the week because, man, come on, Lane.
By the way, we didn't really talk about this game at all, but good game.
It was a great game.
Almost every opportunity to win that game and just do it with not really any sort of just. And it's kind of the same thing with the Oregon game. They were up 2 for what seemed like the entire game, and then just couldn't do anything after. And then finally their defense broke. They were playing the bend don't break method, and it broke, and Mississippi State kind of seized control at the end. There was the late touchdown and then the failed 2-point conversion. So, yeah, Lane Kiffin suffering his first Egg Bowl loss. He had won the previous 2.
Yep.
But how encouraged, though, do you have to be, though, as a player, though, that your coach is right now not leaving? That's got to be a little positive.
You got to feel good about that.
You do. Because he could have fooled around like he usually does and just, like, beat it around the bush. But he came out clearly saying, hey, I'm not going anywhere. And then he reassured it again that, hey, I'm not doing it. I'm not even considering it.
So, yeah, but sorry, Lane. Can't lose 3 in a row like that. So I'm going to move on to my last loser of the week in North Carolina. Man, going to overtime against North Carolina State. Double overtime, especially when I don't know how much you interact with the UNC fan base, but as someone who is in ACC circles, this is a UNC fan base that constantly says North Carolina State is not our rival. To lose in double overtime in that way to not our rival is probably the most humiliating thing that can happen to you. Just the kicker. That kicker missing that field goal.
Yeah.
That's a give me, too. That was a give me.
I thought he got blocked at first, and then I realized he just completely just shanked it. Completely shanked it.
I feel bad for the kicker, too, because me as a Florida State fan waiting because our game was on after theirs, me and everybody at our house were just like, I hope he misses this kick so we can end this game.
Right.
And then he misses the kick.
It's funny. I kind of said, I'm like, he's totally missing this wide left. And then he completely missed it. I was just kind of laughing. I'm like, I totally jinxed it.
Yeah, I was like, man, that's insane. This guy wants his Florida State game to start, too. Man.
Tough loss there, but we'll see what they happen. See again. This is kind of like the LSU game. How are they gonna respond? Luckily for them, Clemson also lost. So which team's gonna respond? I think the most is gonna win that game.
Yeah. So we'll move on to our final discussions of the weekend.
Do you want to talk about this, or just briefly talk about this, or just wait?
Yep. Just state what happened. Just the first 2. I don't really care about the last one yet if it's not official. So I'll just say that Matt Rule is officially the next head coach at the University of Nebraska. They found their man for the future.
Yeah.
We both know Matt Rule did amazing at Baylor, especially after the Art Briles.
And he did well at Temple, too.
Mm-hmm. Obviously, he failed in the NFL at North Carolina, but really for a college coach, that doesn't really mean anything to fail in the NFL. Yeah. I mean, 90% of them do that anyways.
If anything, you kind of learn what goes on there, and you can use it as like a. I mean, I bet you Saban and Kiffin do it as good as anybody. I mean, they were not good in the NFL, and they do as well as anybody with probably recruit, and they can probably use it as like a recruiting weapon as well as like, hey, I know what happens up there. If you trust,
I know
me,
NFL guys.
Yeah,
I know NFL circles. I know who to talk to for you.
For sure.
So I think this is, if I'm Nebraska, this is the best case scenario for your coaching hire, and I would give it an A+ right now. This is the guy they wanted. This is the perfect hire for them right now. This is a guy who has built programs that are completely gone off the rails bad. I'm excited for Nebraska football, and I don't think I've ever said that in my entire life.
I think I give it like a, I'd probably give it a B because I just want to see what happens.
Understandable.
Yeah, but that's all I got right now.
Mm-hmm.
We'll move on. Looks like Wisconsin is finalizing a deal with Luke Fickell, who was the head coach at Cincinnati. I think this might be the best hire of the entire coaching carousel.
You can't get much better than that.
I think this is a perfect hire for Wisconsin. It's a guy that is still going to want to bring that toughness, that ground and pound game, but can also inject new life into this Wisconsin passing game, this offense.
Yeah.
And he definitely, and kind of just like Matt Rule, but like he knows how to get to the playoff. He knows how to successfully, consistently win. I think this is a perfect hire. This is like an A hire right now. We'll see what happens with it, but I think right now this is the coaching hire of the. And we weren't really talking about Wisconsin a whole lot, but we'll see now because Braylon Allen, who their star running back, said something about how he would transfer if Jim Knoll or Jim Leonard wasn't hired. We're going to see because Braylon Allen's a very good running back, so we're going to see if he might stay or just go, like he said.
Yeah.
But great hire.
Oh, I 100% agree with you there. This is the perfect hire for Wisconsin right now. This is you're bringing in a coach who has won his conference multiple times at a spot that isn't easy to recruit at. He's recruited well at for a Group of 5 school. He has been to the playoff. He has been to New Year's Six Bowls. He's won New Year's Six Bowls. He is a
Actually, he hasn't.
You're right. He lost.
He lost us.
Yeah, yep, he did. I forgot about that. Sorry.
That can't happen. 0-2 in New Year's Six. 0-2.
Oh,
but he's
okay.
gotten there.
Right.
But he's gotten there.
That's more than most people can say at the Group of 5 level. So, I mean, when you're in this scenario, I think Luke Fickell made a move that really states that the Big 12 is not good. Is I think what more or less Luke Fickell moving means.
Well, it's it's a better opportunity, and he knows Wisconsin being in the weaker division, he has a shot to really take control, bring back Wisconsin to being like the top dog in that division.
Yeah,
which I think might happen now, but we'll see. I'll just say quick ads. We'll finish up here before final thoughts. Willie Fritz, who's the Tulane head coach, is currently being discussed as like a top candidate for Georgia Tech ahead of the AAC title game. We'll see how much that impacts. Nothing's been finalized. He's just the rumors that he might be the head leading candidate. Hugh Freeze is the top candidate right now for Auburn. They were 24-point favorites against New Mexico State and lost by 42. Take that as well for Liberty. Go Flames. Yeah. And we'll just finish up with Deion Sanders. He's seriously considering the Buffalo, Colorado job. That would be a huge hire for him. I think a good hire because they're not one of those powerhouse programs, but they're in a Power 5. And it would give Deion a chance to really show what he's made of from the a coaching standpoint. Because, all these other Power 5 schools give him a shot, and now he might have a shot if he wants to take it at really building his resume.
Yeah.
So that's really all we have. I don't know if you have any final thoughts before we end the show.
Not much to say other than what happens to all those kids at Jackson State if Deion leaves for Colorado? Do you think they follow him, or are they just gonna? Yeah, or are they just gonna sit there and be like, "Wow"?
I think most of them will probably come where he is because most of. I mean, he'll probably bring like Travis Hunter, his son, who's I think their quarterback. Mm-hmm. He's pretty good too.
Yep.
You gotta imagine he'll bring them. Probably some other guys. I don't watch Jackson State football, but
no, I don't. You can't. They don't even play on. Doesn't even like record their games.
No, it's always like on ESPN Plus or something like that. But I gotta imagine that he will. He'll definitely bring a bunch of guys over. But that's all I got. I don't know if you have any more final thoughts.
Not much else to say.
We'll pick back up hopefully Tuesday night or Wednesday for the playoff rankings reaction, as well as weekend or just mainly playoff rankings, and then any other news college football before we head to our weekend preview, championship preview. So, that's all I got today. I don't know.
Yeah.
Have any last words?
That's all I have to say too.
Alrighty. Thanks for watching around. Please go like and subscribe to the videos. That's really going to help us out in growing the channel. We're continuously trying to, do what we can on our end to get the products out to you better. But the best way that you can do that is if you're viewing, even if it's for 5 minutes, it helps. As long as you can go and hit that like and subscribe button, it really helps us grow the channel more, because that's what our main goal is.
Yeah, improve. We just want more people to be able to hear what we have to say about things.
Yeah, and I don't.
That's our biggest.
And like I said, if it's for 5 minutes or an hour, anything's awesome. Just hit that like and subscribe button.
Yeah.
But like I said, we'll be back Tuesday or Wednesday night. Until then, this is the Knowles and Dogs podcast. We'll see you around.
All right. See you guys.